The afternoon sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Sterling Technologies as Olivia Carter focused intently on her computer screen. Her fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, crafting the presentation that Benjamin Sterling had requested by end of day. The office hummed with quiet productivity around her, but Olivia barely noticed. She had learned during her 16 months working here that meeting deadlines was not optional. Her phone buzzed suddenly, breaking her concentration. The screen displayed Riverside Elementary, and Olivia's stomach immediately tightened. Schools never called during the day, unless something was wrong with Sophie. "This is Olivia Carter," she answered, trying to keep the worry from her voice. "Mrs. Carter, this is Linda from the nurse's office. Sophie has developed a fever of 101 degrees, and she has been sick twice. We need someone to pick her up right away." Olivia's eyes darted to the clock on her monitor. It was only 3:30 in the afternoon, and she was scheduled to work until 6. Her gaze moved across the open office space toward the corner where Benjamin Sterling's office stood behind glass walls. Through the transparent barrier, she could see him in what appeared to be an intense discussion with two men in expensive business suits. "I will be there as soon as I can," Olivia promised. Already gathering her belongings, Benjamin Sterling was everything that made Olivia nervous about the corporate world. At 35, he had built a technology empire from nothing, and his reputation for brilliance was matched only by his reputation for being impossibly demanding. His dark hair was always impeccably styled, his suits clearly custom-made, and his blue eyes had a way of making people feel like he could see straight through any excuse or half-truth. In her time working as his marketing coordinator, Olivia had witnessed him dismantle weak proposals with just a few pointed questions. He expected excellence, and he had no patience for anything less. The other employees whispered stories about him. How he had never missed a single day of work in 5 years. How he arrived before everyone else and left after everyone had gone home. How he had turned down countless social invitations because work always came first. Now, Olivia stood outside his office door, watching through the glass as he gestured emphatically. She had no choice but to interrupt his meeting, even though the prospect made her palms sweat. Sophie needed her, and nothing else mattered in that moment. She knocked gently and waited. Benjamin glanced toward the door, made eye contact with her, and held up one finger, indicating she should wait. 5 agonizing minutes passed before the meeting concluded, and the two men exited his office. "Come in," Benjamin called, his attention already back on the documents spread across his desk. Olivia stepped inside, her heart hammering. The office smelled of leather and coffee, and the view of the city's skyline through the windows was breathtaking. She had only been inside his private office a handful of times. "Mr. Sterling." "I apologize for interrupting, but I have a family emergency," she began. Hearing the slight tremor in her own voice, Benjamin looked up, his blue eyes focusing on her with that unnerving intensity. He leaned back in his chair and waited silently for her to continue. "My daughter Sophie is sick at school. The nurse called and said she has a high fever. I need to pick her up immediately. I understand we have the quarterly presentation due today, but I was hoping I could leave now and complete it from home this evening." The silence that followed felt endless. Benjamin's fingers drummed soundlessly on his desk, and Olivia felt her face growing hot. She hated asking for special treatment, especially from someone as successful and intimidating as Benjamin Sterling. "How frequently does this happen?" he asked finally. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "These emergency calls from your daughter's school. How often do they interfere with your work schedule?" Olivia felt a flash of defensive anger, but forced it down. She needed this job desperately. She could not afford to show any emotion that might be seen as unprofessional. "Sophie is generally a healthy child. Mr. Sterling, this is only the 3rd time this year that I have needed to leave work early for her. I am a single mother, and sometimes these situations are unavoidable." Benjamin stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, and Olivia wondered if he was deciding the most diplomatic way to let her go. She had heard stories of employees being terminated for far less. "I have a proposal for you, Miss Carter," he said finally, turning back to face her. "A proposal? You can leave early today to care for your daughter. Furthermore, You can have flexible working hours whenever you need them for family emergencies. No questions asked, no reduction in pay. Olivia blinked, certain she must have misunderstood. This was not at all what she had expected to hear. That is extremely generous, Mr. Sterling, but I do not understand. What would you want in return? Benjamin walked back to his desk and sat down, his expression unreadable. I need a favor, an unconventional one. What kind of favor? I need a girlfriend. Olivia was certain she had heard him incorrectly. Excuse me? Not a real girlfriend, Benjamin clarified quickly. A pretend one. Someone to accompany me to business dinners, charity events, and social gatherings. Someone who can help me avoid the constant matchmaking attempts from business associates and their daughters. Olivia stared at him in complete shock. Of all the things she had imagined he might say, this had not even been on the list. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? Think of it as a business arrangement. You would accompany me to perhaps 2 or 3 events each month. Nothing inappropriate. Simply public appearances. In exchange, you receive the flexible schedule you need to care for Sophie properly. Olivia's mind raced. The flexible schedule would solve so many of her problems. She would not have to stress about rushing from work or scrambling to find last-minute childcare when meetings ran late. But pretending to be Benjamin Sterling's girlfriend meant stepping into a world she knew absolutely nothing about. I do not have appropriate clothing for those kinds of events, she said weakly, would be covered as a business expense. Wardrobe, accessories, whatever you need to appear convincing. 6 months initially. If it proves successful, we can discuss extending it. Olivia thought about Sophie waiting at school, probably frightened and feeling terrible. She thought about all the nights she had laid awake worrying about balancing motherhood and career. All the times she had felt like she was failing at both. Can I have time to think about it? Benjamin nodded. Of course. But Miss Carter, your daughter is waiting. We can discuss the details tomorrow if you are interested. Olivia hurried from the office, her mind spinning. As she drove to Sophie's school, she tried to process what had just occurred. Benjamin Sterling, one of the most eligible bachelors in the city, wanted her to be his fake girlfriend. It seemed like something from a romantic novel. It's not real life. Sophie was waiting in the nurse's office, looking pale and exhausted. Olivia's heart ached as she gathered her daughter into her arms, feeling the heat radiating from her small body. Mommy, I feel awful, Sophie whispered. I know, sweetheart. Let's get you home and comfortable. As they drove home with Sophie dozing in the back seat, Olivia could not stop thinking about Benjamin's offer. She found herself imagining attending glamorous events, wearing beautiful gowns, being seen alongside one of the most powerful men in the city. But it was all pretend. Benjamin did not want her for herself. He wanted her as protection against unwanted attention. Still, the practical advantages were impossible to ignore. With flexible hours, she could be the mother Sophie deserved without constantly worrying about her job security. That evening, after Sophie's fever had decreased and she was sleeping peacefully, Olivia sat at her small kitchen table with a cup of tea. Her modest apartment felt tiny compared to Benjamin's spacious office, and she was acutely aware of the financial pressures that influenced every decision she thought about her ex-husband, who had left when Sophie was only 2 years old, claiming he was not ready for the responsibility of parenthood. She thought about the long hours she worked to make ends meet. The constant juggling between career and motherhood. Benjamin's offer represented an opportunity she never could have imagined. But it also meant entering a world where she would be completely out of her depth. Could she really convince people she was the girlfriend of a billionaire? Could she handle the social expectations and scrutiny that would come with such a role? As she sat in the quiet of her apartment, one thing became clear. She was exhausted from struggling alone. Benjamin Sterling was offering her a way to provide better for Sophie while maintaining her career. Perhaps it was time to take a chance. The next morning, she would give him her answer. For days after accepting Benjamin's proposal, Olivia found herself standing in the most luxurious boutique she had ever entered. The store was located in an area of the city where she rarely ventured, where even the sidewalks seemed polished to perfection. The personal stylist, a woman named Grace Chen, had been personally selected by Benjamin to help transform Olivia into someone who could believably be his partner at high society events. "Mr. Sterling has impeccable taste," Grace said, holding up a stunning sapphire blue gown against Olivia's frame. "This color will complement your complexion beautifully." Olivia stared at her reflection in the three-way mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. The gown was more elegant than anything she had ever worn in her entire life, and when she caught a glimpse of the price tag, her breath caught in her throat. One dress cost more than 3 months of her rent. "Are you certain about the fit?" Olivia asked nervously, running her hand over the luxurious fabric. "Trust me, darling. When you walk into that charity auction tomorrow evening, you will command attention," Grace assured her with a confident smile. Benjamin had arranged for everything. An appointment at the city's most prestigious salon for hairstyling, a makeup consultation with someone who had worked with celebrities, even private lessons on proper etiquette for navigating elite social circles. Olivia felt like Cinderella being prepared for the ball, except this fairy tale came with a signed contract and a clear end date. The following evening arrived faster than Olivia had anticipated. The Sterling Foundation charity auction was being held at the Grand Ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, one of the most exclusive venues in the city. As their car pulled up to the entrance, Olivia's hands began trembling slightly. Through the tinted windows, she could see photographers lined up along the red carpet, reporters with microphones, and elegantly dressed guests making their grand entrances into the hotel. "Remember," Benjamin said, adjusting his perfectly tied bow tie, "we have been dating for 2 months. We met through work at Sterling Technologies, but we kept the relationship private until recently." "What if someone asked specific questions about our relationship?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Benjamin turned to look at her, and for the first time since she had known him, his usually stern expression softened slightly. "You look absolutely stunning, Olivia. Just be yourself, and everything will work out fine." The car door opened and Benjamin stepped out first, then extended his hand to help Olivia. As she emerged from the vehicle in her sapphire gown, camera flashes immediately erupted around them. Benjamin placed his hand gently but firmly on the small of her back, and they walked toward the entrance together. Inside the ballroom, Olivia was overwhelmed by the sheer opulence surrounding her. Massive crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, casting prismatic light across the room. The tables were decorated with elaborate floral arrangements that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Everyone seemed to know Benjamin, and he moved through the crowd with practiced ease, gracefully introducing Olivia to business partners, city officials, and prominent socialites. Benjamin Sterling. "I was beginning to wonder when you would finally bring someone special to one of these events," said Catherine Thornfield, the wife of a prominent real estate developer. She was wearing what was clearly a designer gown and enough jewelry to fund a small business. "I would like you to meet Olivia Carter. Olivia, Catherine, is one of the Foundation's most dedicated supporters." "It is wonderful to meet you," Olivia said, grateful for the etiquette coaching she had received earlier in the week. "And what do you do, dear?" Catherine asked with genuine curiosity in her voice. "I work in marketing," Olivia replied smoothly. "I specialize in digital campaigns for technology companies." Catherine seemed genuinely impressed. How refreshing to meet someone with a real career. So many of the young women at these events are simply hunting for wealthy husbands. As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself gradually relaxing into the role she was playing. Benjamin was attentive without being overly affectionate, and their conversations flowed naturally. She began to understand how someone could become accustomed to this lifestyle, how the glamour and luxury could become normal. Halfway through the dinner service, Olivia noticed a commotion at the entrance to the ballroom. A striking woman with platinum blonde hair styled in perfect waves entered wearing a crimson designer gown that probably cost more than Olivia's car. Several people turned to whisper among themselves as she made her entrance. "Who is that?" Olivia asked quietly, leaning slightly toward Benjamin. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a subtle change that most people would not have noticed. "Victoria Ashford. She owns Ashford Media Empire." Olivia had heard of Victoria Ashford. She was a successful businesswoman known for her aggressive tactics in acquiring competing companies and her reputation for always getting exactly what she wanted. According to office gossip, she and Benjamin had briefly dated several years ago, before a bitter business disagreement ended both their personal and professional relationship. As Victoria made her way through the crowded room, it became increasingly clear that her destination was their table. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. "Benjamin, darling," Victoria said, her voice carrying a tone of false sweetness that made Olivia's instincts bristle. "How absolutely wonderful to see you here supporting such a worthy cause," Victoria Benjamin acknowledged with professional courtesy. "This is unexpected. And who is this lovely creature?" Victoria asked, turning her sharp gaze toward Olivia. "Victoria, meet Olivia Carter." "Olivia, this is Victoria Ashford." Victoria's smile was sharp and calculating. "Olivia Carter, I do not believe we have met before. Are you new to the city?" "I have lived here for about 5 years," Olivia replied, sensing the underlying hostility in Victoria's tone. "How interesting. And you work in marketing, I assume?" Most of the women Benjamin dates seem to be in supportive positions rather than leadership roles. Olivia felt her temper flare, but kept her voice calm and measured. "Actually, I develop comprehensive digital strategies for technology companies. It is quite challenging and incredibly rewarding work." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly, like a predator reassessing its prey. Of course, Benjamin has always appreciated intelligence in his companions. "Tell me, how long have you two been seeing each other?" 2 months, Benjamin interjected smoothly, placing his hand over Olivia's on the table in a gesture that appeared both protective and possessive. 2 months, Victoria repeated thoughtfully, her perfectly manicured fingernail tapping against her champagne glass. "Strange. I was at the Hamilton Industries launch party just 7 weeks ago, and Benjamin was there alone. I certainly would have remembered seeing such a striking couple." Olivia felt a moment of panic rise in her chest, but Benjamin remained completely calm. "You were keeping things private initially. Olivia values her privacy, and I respect that." "How remarkably considerate of you," Victoria said, her smile becoming even more predatory. "Well, I do hope you will both attend my anniversary gala next month. It would be such a disappointment if you could not make it." After Victoria moved on to intimidate other guests at different tables, Olivia turned to Benjamin with concern in her eyes. "She knows, does not? She knows this is not real." "Victoria suspects everyone of ulterior motives because that is exactly how she operates," Benjamin said quietly, his voice barely audible above the string quartet playing in the background. "Do not let her get inside your head." As the evening continued, something unexpected began to happen. During the charity auction portion of the event, Benjamin bid an astronomical amount on a painting that Olivia had casually mentioned she found beautiful. When he won the item, he leaned over and whispered that it would look perfect in her apartment. "Benjamin, you cannot give me something that expensive," Olivia protested quietly. "Consider it part of your compensation for this evening. You have been absolutely perfect." Later, as they danced during the final portion of the event, Olivia found herself surprised by how natural it felt to be in Benjamin's arms. He was an excellent dancer, guiding her effortlessly across the floor, despite her limited experience with formal dancing. "You are doing wonderfully," he said softly, his breath warm against her ear. "I know this world can be overwhelming. It is terrifying," Olivia admitted honestly, "but also rather exciting." Benjamin smiled, and Olivia realized it was the first genuine smile she had ever seen from him. It transformed his entire face, making him seem younger and less intimidating. "You surprise me, Olivia Carter," he said. "I expected someone nervous and uncomfortable. Instead, you have been graceful and confident all evening. I have been terrified every single moment," she confessed with a slight laugh. "That makes your performance even more impressive." The evening drew to a close, and they walked back to the car. Olivia realized something had shifted between them. The conversation in the car on the way home was different from their usual professional interactions. Benjamin asked about Sophie, about Olivia's interests outside of work, about her dreams and aspirations. When they finally arrived at her apartment building, Benjamin walked her to the door. "Thank you for this evening," he said formally. You exceeded every expectation. Thank you for the opportunity, Olivia replied. And for the painting? Though I still think it was excessively generous, Olivia Benjamin said, hesitating for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. I want you to know that tonight was not just about our arrangement. I genuinely enjoyed your company. Before Olivia could respond, Benjamin had turned and walked back to the waiting car as she entered her apartment, where the babysitter was waiting. Olivia could not stop replaying the evening in her mind. Something had changed tonight. What had started as a simple business transaction was beginning to feel like something else entirely, and that realization both thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. 3 weeks had passed since the charity auction, and Olivia had attended 4 more events with Benjamin. Each appearance felt easier than the last, and something neither of them had anticipated was happening. The lines between pretending and reality were beginning to blur. It started with small things. Benjamin began stopping by her desk at work, not just to discuss projects, but to ask how Sophie was feeling, or to bring Olivia her favorite coffee without being asked. He remembered details from their conversations, things that had nothing to do with their arrangement. Olivia found herself looking forward to seeing him each day, not out of obligation, but because his presence had become something she genuinely enjoyed. One Saturday afternoon, Olivia's carefully constructed world shifted unexpectedly. She was at the park with Sophie when her phone rang. Benjamin's name appeared on the screen, which was unusual because he never called on weekends unless there was an emergency event they needed to attend. Benjamin, she answered, watching Sophie play on the swings nearby. Olivia, I hope I am not interrupting your weekend. His voice sounded different, less formal than usual. I was wondering if you and Sophie might like to join me for lunch. There is a wonderful family restaurant near the park, and I thought perhaps we could all spend some time together.
Oh.
Olivia's heart skipped unexpectedly. This was not part of their arrangement. Their contract specified public events only, nothing that involved Sophie or their personal lives outside of work. Do you want to have lunch with us? She asked carefully. Only if you are comfortable with it. I realize this is outside our agreement, but I would genuinely like to meet Sophie properly. You talk about her so often, and I feel like I know her already. Against her better judgment, Olivia agreed. 20 minutes later, they were seated in a cozy restaurant with checkered tablecloths and a menu full of comfort food. Sophie was initially shy around Benjamin, hiding partially behind Olivia's arm.
Sophie.
This is Mr. Sterling. He works with Mommy, Olivia explained gently. You can call me Ben, Benjamin said, crouching down to Sophie's eye level. Your mom tells me you are an excellent artist. I happen to love art very much. Sophie's eyes lit up immediately. Really? I made a painting of a rainbow unicorn at school yesterday. A rainbow unicorn sounds absolutely magnificent. What colors did you use? As Sophie enthusiastically described her artwork in vivid detail, Olivia watched Benjamin listen with genuine interest. He asked thoughtful questions, laughed at Sophie's silly jokes, and seemed completely comfortable in a way she had never seen him at work or fancy events. This was a side of Benjamin Sterling that apparently no one in the business world ever witnessed. After lunch, they walked through the park together. Sophie ran ahead, chasing pigeons and collecting interesting leaves. Benjamin walked beside Olivia, and their hands accidentally brushed together. Neither of them pulled away. Thank you for today, Benjamin said quietly. I know this was not part of our arrangement. Why did you want to meet her? Olivia asked, needing to understand what was happening between them. Benjamin was quiet for a long moment, watching Sophie twirl in circles on the grass ahead of them. Because she is important to you? Which means she is important to me, he said simply. I know that probably sounds strange given the nature of our agreement, but somewhere along the way, this stopped feeling like an arrangement. Olivia. Before Olivia could respond, Sophie came running back with a handful of dandelions. Ben, these are for you, she announced proudly, presenting the wilted flowers like they were the most precious gift in the world. Benjamin accepted them with surprising tenderness. These are beautiful, Sophie. Thank you so much. That evening, after Olivia had put Sophie to bed, she found herself unable to stop thinking about the day. She had entered this arrangement out of necessity, never expecting to develop real feelings for Benjamin Sterling. But watching him with Sophie, seeing the gentle side of him that he kept hidden from the world, something inside her heart had shifted irrevocably. The following week at work, everything felt different. Their professional interactions were charged with unspoken tension. Every accidental touch lingered a moment too long. Every glance across the office carried meaning that neither of them was ready to acknowledge out loud. Then Victoria Ashford made her move. On Thursday morning, Olivia arrived at work to find the office buzzing with whispered conversations. Her assistant, Jennifer, looked uncomfortable when Olivia asked what was happening. "There is an article," Jennifer said hesitantly. Victoria Ashford gave an interview to Business Weekly magazine. "She is claiming that your relationship with Mr. Sterling is fabricated for business purposes." Olivia's blood ran cold. She immediately went to Benjamin's office, finding him staring at his computer screen with an expression of barely controlled anger. "She has no proof," Benjamin said before Olivia could speak. "It is all speculation and insinuation. But the damage is already done. The article is suggesting that I created a fake relationship to appear more stable for an upcoming merger negotiation." "What do we do?" Olivia asked, feeling panic rising in her chest. Benjamin stood and walked to the window, his posture tense. "We could end the arrangement. Issue a statement saying we have decided to part ways. It would be the cleanest solution professionally. Is that what you want?" Olivia asked, surprised by how much the thought of ending things hurt. Benjamin turned to face her, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. "No," he said firmly. "It is not what I want at all. But I need to know what you want, Olivia. This has become more complicated than either of us anticipated." Before Olivia could answer, his phone rang. It was his attorney calling about the article. Benjamin held up one finger, asking her to wait, but the call stretched on for over 30 minutes. Eventually, Olivia returned to her desk, their conversation unfinished. That evening, Olivia was at home helping Sophie with homework when her doorbell rang unexpectedly. She opened it to find Benjamin standing in her hallway, looking disheveled in a way she had never seen before. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly messy, and his expression was raw with emotion. "Can I come in?" he asked. Olivia nodded, stepping aside. Benjamin entered her modest apartment, looking completely out of place in his expensive suit amid her second-hand furniture and Sophie's toys scattered across the floor. "I need to tell you something," he began, his voice unsteady. "And I need you to just listen until I finish." Olivia sat on the couch, her heart pounding, and waited. "6 years ago, I was engaged," Benjamin said, the words clearly difficult for him. "Her name was Rachel. She was beautiful, charming, everything I thought I wanted. We had been together for 2 years when I discovered the truth. She was not in love with me. She was in love with my money, my status, my connections. She had been secretly selling information about my company to competitors the entire time we were together." Olivia's hand moved to her mouth in shock. When I confronted her, she did not even try to deny it. She laughed and told me that love was for foolish people, that relationships were just transactions. I ended things immediately, but the betrayal destroyed something inside me. I built walls. Convinced myself that keeping everything professional and transactional was the only way to protect myself from being hurt again. Benjamin moved closer, kneeling down in front of where Olivia sat so they were at eye level. "Then you walked into my office 3 weeks ago, terrified and desperate, asking for permission to care for your sick daughter. And I saw an opportunity to maintain my protected distance while solving a social problem. It seemed perfect. A clean transaction with clear boundaries." "Benjamin," Olivia whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "But I did not anticipate you, Olivia Carter. I did not anticipate how your kindness would break through my walls. How your strength as a mother would humble me. How your genuine nature would make me want to be a better person. Somewhere between that first charity gala and today, I fell completely in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, transforming everything. "I love you," Benjamin continued, his voice breaking slightly. "Not as part of an arrangement. Not as a business transaction. I love you in the messy, complicated, terrifying way that I swore I would never allow myself to feel again. and I understand if you cannot feel the same way. I understand if this has all been just an arrangement for you, but I needed you to know the truth." Olivia realized tears were streaming down her face. She reached out and cupped Benjamin's face in her hands. "You foolish, wonderful man," she said softly. "I fell in love with you weeks ago. I have been terrified to admit it because I thought this was all still pretend for you. I thought I was alone in feeling this way." Benjamin's expression transformed into something beautiful and vulnerable. "You love me?" "I love you," Olivia confirmed. "The real you? The man who brings me coffee without being asked? The man who spent an entire afternoon listening to my 6-year-old daughter talk about rainbow unicorns? The man who has been hiding behind walls built from old pain?" Benjamin kissed her then, and it was nothing like the polite performative kisses they had shared at public events. This kiss was real and desperate and filled with months of unspoken feelings finally being released. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying and laughing simultaneously. "Mommy." Sophie's small voice came from her bedroom doorway. "Why are you crying? Is something wrong?" Olivia and Benjamin both turned toward her daughter, still holding each other. "Nothing is wrong, sweetheart," Olivia said, wiping her eyes. "Everything is actually very, very right." Sophie walked over and looked seriously at Benjamin. "Are you going to be my daddy now?" The question was so innocent and direct that both adults froze for a moment. Benjamin looked at Olivia, silently asking permission before responding. "Would that be okay with you, Sophie?" Sophie considered this carefully, as only a 6-year-old could. "Will you still listen to me talk about my art?" "Always," Benjamin promised. "And will you love my mommy and make her happy? Every single day for the rest of my life?" Sophie nodded decisively. "Then yes, that would be okay with me." 2 months later, Benjamin and Olivia stood together at a company event, but this time there was no pretending involved. Victoria Ashford was also in attendance, and when she approached them with her usual calculating expression, she found something she had not expected. "Benjamin," Victoria said coolly, "I see you are still together despite all the rumors." Benjamin smiled and pulled Olivia closer. "Victoria, I should actually thank you. Your attempt to expose our relationship as fake forced us to confront feelings we had both been hiding. So in a way, your interference brought us together for real." Victoria's expression faltered, realizing her scheme had completely backfired. "Olivia is not just my girlfriend," Benjamin continued. "She is my partner in every sense of the word. And yes, before you ask, this is very much real." As Victoria walked away defeated, Olivia leaned into Benjamin and whispered, "You know, Sophie has been telling everyone at school that you are her almost daddy?" "Almost?" Benjamin raised an eyebrow. Olivia smiled mysteriously. "She says you cannot be her official daddy until you ask me to marry you properly." Benjamin laughed, a sound that still surprised Olivia with its warmth. "That brilliant little negotiator, she takes after her mother. So what are you going to do about it?" Olivia teased. Benjamin turned serious, taking both of her hands in his. "I am going to do exactly what your daughter suggested. But not here, not at some public event. I am going to do it at the park, where we had our first real lunch together as a family, with Sophie there to approve because her opinion matters just as much as yours." 3 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon in that same park, Benjamin Sterling got down on one knee with a ring he had designed specifically for Olivia. Sophie stood beside him holding a bouquet of dandelions, because Benjamin insisted that those were now his favorite flowers. Olivia said yes, through happy tears. And Sophie cheered so loudly that half the park turned to see what was happening. What had started as a desperate business arrangement between two lonely people had transformed into something neither of them had believed possible anymore. They had found real love in the most unexpected place, proving that sometimes the best things in life happen when you stop pretending and allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to feel. And they all lived authentically. And happily ever after, the end.